Welcome to Basic Brewing Radio for Thursday, February 19th, 2009. I'm James Spencer. Here at Basic Brewing Radio, we're all about home brewing. Well, this week we head into uncharted territory, at least for us. Andy and I join home brewers Kasey Loman and Jen Royer as they brew a batch of beer using local maple sap as most of the brew water. We also get some information on how maple sap is harvested and turned into syrup that we can enjoy on pancakes. Or put into a beer. You can put the syrup in there too, as we do in this show. If you're new to home brewing or would like to get into the hobby for the first time, check out our website, basicbrewing.com, where you can find archives of our audio and video podcasts and our DVDs to walk you through basic and more advanced brewing techniques. And you can follow me on Twitter, my username, Basic Brewing, all one word. You can also find me on Facebook. My username there is Basic Brewing James. Basic Brewing being all one word again. We also have a Basic Brewing Radio and Basic Brewing Video page on Facebook. If you become a fan of the show there, I'll be sending out occasional notices when shows are posted and such. And you can also find photos from the Maple Sap Brewday and the actual recipe for the beer on that Facebook page. Our 2009 Brewers logbooks are still in stock. We ordered more this year than past years to make sure that you can get one, so get them while they're here. You can check them out on our online store, basicbrewingshop.com. And thanks again to everybody clicking on the Amazon.com associate link on our basicbrewing.com site. Whenever you think of Amazon, think of us and click on our associate link first. It won't cost you any extra, and you'll be helping us bring you the show, and we appreciate your support. I got several responses to the question about sanitizing oxy-barrier bottle caps. The word on the street is that getting them wet activates the seal on the caps. Some brewers choose only to sanitize the exact number of caps that they're going to use on bottling day, while others simply keep the caps sealed up in a bag or something and don't sanitize them at all. And then to activate the seal, they tip the beers to wet the caps once they're put on. I've got an email into the manufacturer of the oxy-barrier caps, and I hope to get the official word from them on how these things work and how you should use them, and I'll let you know when and if I get that information. I appreciate everybody for your input. I want to say a quick howdy to Desiree and Dave at High Gravity in Tulsa. My wife and I dropped by their homebrew shop after taking a friend to the airport in Tulsa last week. I've been talking to Desiree and Dave on the phone for a long time, but that's the first time I've ever made it over to their shop. Quite a nice place, very impressive. I posted a picture of us in front of High Gravity on my Facebook profile. Good folks. Desiree and Dave. They fixed me up, basically, I bought some stuff, but they also fixed me up with some homemade wine, and which was very delicious, by the way. Let's take a couple of questions from the mailbag. Scott from Muskegon, Michigan, writes, being a new all-grain brewer, Scott says, your video helped a lot. Thanks, Scott. I have a question about fly sparging. I seem to recall reading somewhere or watching something that said for fly sparging it should take about 40 to 60 minutes to do the sparge. I was wondering if this was true and what happens if you speed that up to, say, 10 minutes. Well, Scott, the deal with fly sparging is that you're draining the wort off the mash at the bottom. At the same time, you're adding fresh water at the top, essentially rinsing the sugars slowly out of the grains. And if you hurry that process up, you're going to be sacrificing some of those sugars. They're going to be lost in the grain. But by running the water through slowly, you're doing a better job of collecting the sugar because it's got more time to dissolve into the wort there, into the water, and to be rinsed from the grain. And the gravity of your runnings is going to slowly decrease over the length of your sparge as that sugar gets rinsed out of the grains. And you need to be sure that you're not creating any channels in your mash where the water can bypass the bulk of the grains and go straight to the bottom. So you have to be careful. You have to go slowly so that you don't compact your grain bed, you don't create channels, and you get the most efficient sparge. You get the most sugars out of your fly sparge. That's the theory, at least. When batch sparging, on the other hand, the speed of the sparge is less important because in batch sparging, you're essentially draining all of the first runnings out of the mash tun and then refilling with sparge water for the second runnings and mixing the grains and reestablishing a filter bed. So in that case, the concentration of the wort, the sugars in the wort throughout the mash is uniform. It's not, less at the top than at the bottom. So in that case, it shouldn't matter, or at least it matters less, whether you run out fast or slow when you're doing a batch sparge. Go back and listen to our show on batch sparging with Denny Kahn. I think Denny did a great job of talking about all that. And like I said, that's the theory at least, and that's one of the reasons that I'm generally a batch sparger. Even if I theoretically do trade a bit of efficiency for time, I think it's a good trade, and I can just tailor my grain bills with that in mind. I hope that makes sense. I got an email from Eyvindur in Iceland, where the world financial situation is especially tough these days. I think that the government there actually went bankrupt in Iceland, in fact. Eyvindur is looking at getting into all grain. He says, since things are pretty tough and it's pretty expensive for me to order ingredients as it is, I can't afford to buy a bigger brew kettle right now. Mine is 5 gallons. Therefore, I'll have to do a 2-part boil, which isn't really that big a problem. I just have to account for that while planning my brew days. I've been wondering if I could possibly, in order to shorten my brew day, just add bittering hops to one half, possibly some flavor and or aroma hops to the other, and boil that one for maybe 20 minutes, and the bittering one for a full hour or 90 minutes, depending on the recipe. I'm a bit unclear if it's only the concentration of the wort, which affects hop utilization, or if it's the volume as well. Maybe you could shed some light on this. Well, both the volume and the density of the wort are said to have an effect on hop utilization, and I think that the density may have a bigger impact than volume. However, if these are all grain beers, you'll need to boil each half of the wort for the full length of time, at least 60 minutes. Not like extract, where you're just boiling, they do most of the work with a full-length boil at the extract manufacturer, and basically you're just reconstituting an all-grain wort when you're doing extract, and all you have to do is just boil the extract for long enough to sanitize it. But there's more happening in an all-grain boil than hop utilization, such as volatilization of DMS and DMS precursors and protein coagulation, and you're basically starting from scratch. So you could split up the hopping between the two batches, but you'd just be doing a full-length boil on both and adding the flavor and aroma hops near the end of the full-length boil in that one half. Another thing that you got to think about is you'll want to start cooling the first half that you boil as soon as you can to make sure that you don't continue to utilize those hops and to strip aroma and flavor characteristics from that. So, in the grand scheme of things, if it were me and I were splitting the boiling of an all-grain wort, I'd just go ahead and add all of the hops in that one half and not worry about hopping the second half. So, that's just me, though. Not much of a time saver, it sounds like. But I do hope things get better soon, Eyvindur, for all of us. On to cheerier things than the world financial crisis. This episode started off as a tweet. Kasey sent out a tweet that she and Jen were going to brew with maple sap. And I said, hey, that'd make a fun show. So Andy and I sort of invited ourselves over for the day. It's another beautiful day in northwest Arkansas as we're looking around in the backyard here. The burner's going, and we're doing something a little special today. With us is Andy Sparks from thehomebrewery.com.
It's great to be here, James.
And Kasey Loman.
Hi.
Otherwise known as Hippie Kasey on Twitter. And Jen Royer.
Hello.
And we're at Kasey and Jen's house And we're doing something special, as I said. And what exactly are we doing? That's none of us, I guess, have ever done this before, Kasey?
No, we're making a beer out of maple sap.
And where did it come from?
It came from a friend of ours, Grandpa, who has a farm out in Arkansas. It's called Frog Bayou, around that area.
Around in, what county would that be? Would that be Madison County? Around White Rock?
Yeah, the White Rock area. It could be maybe Madison County. Yeah. Have to look a little deeper on my map to find out.
Probably some bridges around there somewhere.
No doubt. Low water bridges.
We're not sure what kind of maple trees the sap came from. And it looks a lot like water.
Yes. Kind of cloudy water.
And we took a gravity reading, and it's about 2 bricks, which is about 1.008 specific gravity. So there is some sugar in there, although it's not really apparent, is it, Andy?
Yeah, it tastes pretty much just like water to me. but I'm so pumped about the maple thing that I feel like I taste maple everywhere right now. Of course, we've got the syrup too, so we get to getting to taste that. So I'm getting pretty psyched about this.
So what have we done so far? What's our strategy so far?
Well, we're basically going to get the sap hot and use it for our first runnings. That way, hopefully, we can strain most of it out. We read an article about it from Zymergy, and it only mentioned extract brew. So we're just sort of guessing on strategy here, but I think it'll work well.
Yeah, you guys were talking yesterday. You got together and made the recipe. And initially, you guys were thinking about using it as water for the second runnings, but Andy talked you out of that.
That's right, yeah. Andy had a totally different strategy than we did. He thought, and it makes perfect sense, that if you use it for the first runnings, the sap, then when you sparge it, you'll run all of the extra sugar out. We were thinking that the grain might soak up the sap, and then we'd lose some, but I think we got a good plan.
So was this just intuition, Andy?
Yeah, I think so. Years of brewing experience. No, I just figured that, that's kind of what we're trying to pull out of the grain is the sugars always, right? So what we want to do is leave the water in the grains at the end and not some of the sap. And I thought that would happen if we use the sap at the end. So,
and looking at the sap, it really gives you an appreciation of the process of making maple syrup. I mean, it takes a lot of boiling to get the stuff you put on your pancakes.
No kidding. I think it's you get 1 gallon of maple syrup for every 48 gallons of sap.
Wow.
That takes a long time to boil that down.
And then it probably accounts for the color as well because of the caramelization along the way. Mm-hmm. Does your friend's grandpa, does he make syrup?
Yes. Yeah, he has, I guess, a little, what he calls his sugar shack out. It's outside, and he cooks it up, I think, over wood fire.
Wow.
Yeah. So, wow. I don't know how long that takes.
Okay.
Days, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, it's got to take a long time. We hardly ever talk to women brewers on the show, unfortunately, in my opinion. So, and you guys have not been in brewing for very long. Who wants to tell the story?
Well, we started about January of last year. It was our Jen and I met, and we both said we want to brew. And I was like, I always want to brew. She said, I've always wanted to brew. So we went to the home brewery, and here in Fayetteville, and got set up, and just have been in love with brewing ever since. We brewed about 29 batches last year, 2008. We're on our third this year.
Third or fourth. Yeah.
So we, some bad batches in there, some really good ones too.
I've had nothing but good from y'all. And brewing intensely, like you have over a short period of time, you learn a lot.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, you didn't taste any of the bad ones because we didn't share those with anyone.
One of the first rules of home brewing, don't share your mistakes. So what do you like to brew mostly?
Well, we really like pale ales, IPAs, and Belgians. Those are the ones we brew the most often.
Awesome. I'm all for that. Yeah. So in your customer demographics, Andy, women don't configure very strongly, do they?
No, that's true. Here in our shop and our customer base, we have just a handful of female brewers that come in. You just never know when you see people come in and they're interested in home brewing and they get started, whether they're going to really stick with it. And these guys really took to it with a passion and are probably some of our most aggressive brewers. So.
Yeah, they're every Saturday that I go down there, they wander in, buy a bunch of stuff, and put it to work. So speaking of which, we've got the strike water heating, and we're using all sap for the strike water. What's our grain bill looking like?
Oh, we've got about 9 pounds of Maris Otter, a
1 pound of Cara Vienna,
and aromatic, a pound of aromatic, and then we're going to put close to 2 pounds of maple syrup in there near the last 15 minutes.
And we also threw in a little bit of roasted wheat, like 3 ounces, just to give it a little color.
And what is there a style that you're shooting for, or just
Scottish ale, maybe strong Scottish?
That's that fit most closely when you put it in Beer Alchemy. That was like, you know how you get your little check marks. The Scottish ale was kind of,
Well, and we were having an old chub when we were talking about doing this, and so we were kind of in love with that style right now. So, and we've never brewed one before, so seemed like the right thing to go for.
Well, we will get back with it when we are ready to go into the mash tun, and we'll talk about hopping and yeast and all that in a little bit. So, is there beer to drink right here?
Yes, there's a few beers here.
We will be back. As the birds are singing, we are resting in the mash tun. And after boiling we didn't even boil, we just heated for, and I didn't keep track of how long we were heating, did you?
I think it was, 30 minutes.
So even after that short period of time, we got a little bit of color in the sap.
That's right. Yeah, started to darken just a little bit.
It no longer looks exactly like water. It looks like dirty water.
And we didn't take a taste before we put it in the mash tun, but it smelled a little bit mapley.
Yeah, it did. It had a kind of a little aroma, a little woody aroma that was kind of nice, but still very subtle, very subtle.
And your mash tun could not get any fuller.
No. I think it's about time to get a new, larger mash tun. I've never seen it quite that full.
It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it was gorgeous, and it's going to be a beautiful beer, I think, from just looking at the mash.
The smell right now is incredible too.
Yeah. It would be interesting to have done a side by side. The exact beer with water and the exact beer with sap. Maybe we can duplicate the recipe later on with just water.
Yeah.
To see what happens.
I think it's a great
Brilliant idea.
Oh, thank you. But we there's a tip that I use, and I don't know if I've talked about it on the show, but we sort of did a hybrid of what I generally do to get the proper strike temperature in the mash tun. I generally I don't preheat my mash tun, but I put the strike water in there that's like 10 degrees hotter than I want it to be, and let it settle out, and then add a measured amount of cold water in there and stir it up until it hits the temperature that I want, and then drain out the amount of water that I've put in. We sort of did that, and we couldn't do it. Luckily, you had an extra gallon of refrigerated sap,
right?
So we were able to do that.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, very good. Now we what is there a crock pot somewhere, or is there a?
Oh yeah, we got a pot of deer chili in the makings. Started it last night in the crock pot and moved it onto the pot today. Should be pretty good.
And it's got some beer in it.
Yeah, it has one of our home brewed, just a brown ale, nice little sweet malty brown ale. Thought it would be good in there.
Well, we got to try some of their barley wine, and it was quite tasty as well. So.
Yeah, and they told me that they borrowed a 10-gallon mash tun for the barley wine, because I was like, is this an extract beer? Because you're not getting the amount of grains you need for this barley wine in that small mash tun, but it's delicious. Tell us about that beer.
Oh, well, we used about 7.5 pounds of Maris Otter and 7.5 pounds British Pale. And what else did we put in there? It's a good
bunch of other stuff.
half pound of popsicle.
As she's running to get
Pause
the
for one moment. Going to get the recipe. It's hard to remember every brew.
And, 3 pounds of Munich, a pound of Victory, light, medium, and dark crystal, like about 5 ounces of each of those, and a lot of Cascades, about a half pound of Cascades, some Goldings, and bittered with Northern Brewer, I think, about that. Maybe a little off on that.
Let's see. 1, 2, 4, 6. That's about 8 ounces, yeah.
Yeah. Which would be a half a pound.
Total. Some of them
questioned
weren't
me.
Cascades, but yeah, you're right. Wow.
Yeah,
I didn't realize. Oh, I see. You wrote it down right there. Yeah. We've already tallied that number. Yeah.
We've had some barley wine since then, so so that was very good.
Well,
and barley wine, that was your first barley wine.
Yes.
And especially impressive because of that.
Oh yeah, it was our first one. We did a lot of planning on that. We wanted to make it really hoppy, and I think we achieved that. And so it was an exciting thing. We were going to save it for our wedding in May, but we're drinking through it pretty good, a little earlier than planned.
Just save one for the end, and then you can have that.
Yeah.
Well, it's delicious, and I assume the deer chili will be too. We'll be back. So, Sarah Moore, you wandered into the brewing session. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
And the sap actually came from your grandfather's place. Tell us about the process.
That's correct. He's been doing this since, I think it was 1976, the first time he attempted this. And he was going off of a book, I believe, the Nearings wrote in the 50s. They were the ones that kind of started the Back to the Land movement, and they started tapping their trees up at their farm in Vermont. And so my step-grandfather, John Rule, read about this and decided when he and my grandmother bought their land south of Winslow, Arkansas, that they would try it. So he's been doing it off and on since then. It's a labor of love.
Now, what kind of maple trees are these?
Sugar maples. Just, the woods out there are kind of dotted with them. I mean, he hasn't cultivated a maple tree forest or anything, so they're kind of few and far between. You have to go on quite a hike to collect enough sap to boil down to make syrup.
Yeah, we tested the sugar, and it's very, very low, and I can imagine that it would take quite a bit of time to boil down to something that we would want to put on pancakes.
That's correct. I believe the ratio I heard is 40 gallons to 1 of syrup, 40 gallons of the sap. If you've ever tasted maple sap, you'll know it's just like a faintly sweet hint of, I guess sweetness, but it's really just like water, that comes out of the tree. Mm-hmm. So it takes a long time to slowly boil that down and let it evaporate enough to get to the consistency of syrup. How
much time are we talking?
I guess it depends on the conditions of your fire and everything. My grandfather doesn't have a real precise setup. He just has a fire pit out in the middle of the woods, and we call it the syruping site. And he's got some shallow trays. He fills those up, and you just keep the fire going. And you skim off the foam. It's just a process that I think he's been doing it about 3 weeks now. And he just keeps the fire going and keeps adding new batches of sap as he collects it and cooking it down into smaller and smaller amounts.
Wow. And what time of year do you have to do this?
Well, traditionally we've done it mid to late January, but we noticed this year I think we're going to have to get started right after Christmas because really he's noticing climate change happening here. It's just the sap starts running so early now. But really, I guess it has to do with, I don't really understand all the scientific aspects of it, but I guess it can start actually running in the fall and go through the spring and everything, but the height of it happens towards the end of winter.
And how do you know? How do you know that it's time to start collecting?
Well, the best way is to look for evidence of the sapsuckers. And this is something you might notice when you're walking through the woods. It's also an easy way to spot a maple tree. The sapsuckers start harvesting the sap, and you can see the holes in the tree where they've pierced it, and they're just oozing sap. And then I guess there's a bacteria that forms on the bark because of the sugars and all that stuff in the sap that runs down, and so the tree bark gets really black. So you can spot a maple tree pretty easily in the woods that way. But yeah, my grandfather's biggest, clue is when you see the sapsuckers have been hitting about, I guess, chest level on the trees. When it gets up that high, that's when you want to start tapping them.
And sapsuckers are birds, for those who don't know.
That's correct.
So what's the actual process? What do you got to do?
Well, you get your tap, which he makes out of just, I forget the types of wood that he uses, but it's just a hollow spout. I think, you can order metal ones and stuff from the catalogs, but he makes his own. He whittles them and everything. And then you just, you bore. He has a little wood borer to, I guess it's about a 1/2 inch diameter hole. And I'm not sure how far in, maybe an inch, maybe not even that far into the tree. And then you just kind of hammer the spout in. And then throughout the year, he collects gallon milk jugs and keeps them clean and everything. And then we just put those onto those spout, and it starts dripping into those jugs. And so depending on how fast the sap is running, you might have to collect 2 to 3 times a day. Because you'll go back and see that the jug is almost full. The sap's been running really fast.
Wow.
So you get a lot of exercise walking up and down along the creek and hauling 5-gallon buckets of sap.
So does this hurt the tree?
No. Apparently it's no different than us getting, pricked for a, blood sample or something.
Except the tree doesn't fall over like I would if I get, I'm a little queasy on those things. So.
Right. Well, I think that there's probably a rule that you don't want to put more than, depending on the size of the tree, you don't want to put too many taps on it. The most that he has on the bigger trees are 3. I've seen some trees that he put 3 taps on because it's just so large and produces that much sap.
So is this something somebody could do in their backyard?
Absolutely, but the thing is that in your backyard, unless you have enough of the trees, it's going to take you a long time to collect enough sap if you really want to boil it down and make, enough to do syrup. But if say you're going to brew maple beer, and in this instance, my friends here are using 5 gallons for that batch, you could probably collect 5 gallons over the course of, maybe a week or so from a single tree. I would imagine that's just an estimate, but you could probably get away with that.
What did you think when they wanted to make beer out of the sap? Has anybody else made beer out of sap before around here?
Not to my knowledge. I was really excited. And of course, they don't know anyone that does this, so that gave me an opportunity to kind of show off and be like, yeah, I'm bringing you the sap, and then hopefully I'll get to partake of the maple beer. I'm really excited about trying that.
Yeah, me too. Well, thanks, Sarah. It's been fun.
Thanks for having me.
All right, we got the boil going, and Jen is out here. You are using a technique that I don't use to avoid the boil over. So what are you doing?
I'm just using a little spray bottle with water in it, distilled water, and whenever the foam starts getting really high, I just kind of spray it down, and it kind of calms everybody down. So.
And it works. Oh, Andy's getting a little. Yeah. Are you calm, Andy?
I'll stop drinking my maple scotchies.
Yeah, we discovered a new drink. We were drinking hot. We started out with a round of hot scotchies, which we got from Ray Daniels, which you take hot wort and you mix a little scotch with it, and those were darn tasty.
And that is a tradition that should be in everybody's brew day.
That's right. That's right. Yep. And then Andy, we have this little 2.5-pound tub of maple syrup on the counter, and Andy had a little idea.
Well, they wouldn't let us take any more of the wort because they actually want that in their beer. Go figure. So I said, well, we could kind of make a little wort out of some of this maple syrup, a little water, warm it in the microwave, and then do the little scotchy thing there, and it turns out pretty tasty.
Yeah, it's very good. Like a couple teaspoons of the maple syrup, and you put it in the microwave for like 15, 20 seconds. Andy waters his down with some water. I didn't. And then you mix in a little bit of, what kind of scotch are we using?
It's cheap stuff. It's called Dugan's Dew. We get it in Texas. Yeah.
Some cheap Texas scotch, and it's with a hot scotchy. You don't need good scotch with a hot scotchy because you're going to be diluting it. You're going to be mixing it.
Right. The point is to taste the wort and see how the wort tastes this time with a little touch of scotch in it. It's quite a tasty little drink.
Yeah, and if the brewers are stingy with their first runnings, then you get the maple syrup out and you
improvise,
and you mix it in with a little bit of scotch, and man, that's some tasty stuff. So now we're up to a boil, and it's a healthy boil. Now Jen can probably put away the sprayer.
It smells delicious too. We haven't put the hops in yet.
Yeah, we're going to wait probably 30 minutes, and the reason for that.
The reason we thought we should do a 90-minute boil just to kind of condense that maple sap a little bit more to get a bit more of the maple flavor. So,
yeah, I agree.
That makes sense for sure.
Yeah, we caramelize it a little bit and condense it a little bit, and I think our original gravity was our pre-boil gravity was like 1053,
1052,
something like that.
Right in there.
So, boil a little bit of the water off and increase our gravity a bit. And maybe caramelize some of those flavors, but man, it smells good coming off that boil.
And what are we going to do for the hop schedule on this?
Do we want to wait to talk about the hop schedule, or do we want to talk? We can talk about the hop schedule now.
Yeah. Oh, we're going to do a half ounce of Northern Brewer at 60 minutes, and a half ounce of Willamette at 20 minutes. No aroma or anything, because we want the maple syrup and flavor to come out.
So not a lot of hop flavor and aroma, but some bitterness to kind of counteract the whoop. We're coming up a little bit there. Oh, no, Jen, look, boy, she knows her.
Brew pot.
Sounds like a steam train.
She's got skills.
So this
you can tell Andy didn't have a hand in the hop schedule on this.
You wouldn't taste the maple if that was right.
Yeah, it would be all about the hops in the maple beer. But this is actually a turkey fryer, right?
Yes, it is. We got it on Amazon.com, and it was about $50 or $60, for the whole thing with the burner. So
and the pot.
Wow.
So.
Well, it works.
Yeah.
And the one thing that you want to look out for with turkey fryers is that they're stable, and this one has legs that kind of goes, spreads out from the center point, so it looks pretty good. Looks pretty stable. So we're making beer.
Yeah, and it smells delicious. Woohoo!
So now many beers since the boil has stopped, and now we're chilling, and we decided to boost the mapliness of the sap a bit.
Yeah, we added 2 pounds of maple syrup, not sap, but maple syrup, the actual syrup.
Well, we tasted the wort with just the sap, and we all thought that it didn't really have much of a maple flavor, so we just boosted it with a little bit of syrup, just so that to make sure that maple flavor got in there.
Yeah.
Well, just to make everything clear, I made them add the maple syrup. So if anybody ever asks, it was Andy's fault that we put the maple syrup in here, okay?
Really, he just wants credit for the beer being fantastic.
It should be fantastic because it smells absolutely incredible right now.
Yeah, the wort tastes and smells wonderful, and we're cooling a sample to see what our original gravity is going to be. But this has been a really fun brew day,
Sure
first of all, and I think that the experience of brewing with maple sap, water that comes from nature through a tree, and has a little bit of naturally added sugar, I think is a wonderful thing. And someone else is
Somebody can smell how good it is, and they're coming for a sample.
Yeah, somebody's come through the front door. So, what yeast are we going to pitch with, Kasey?
We're using the Edinburgh ale yeast, White Labs. Yeah.
So, and we got a starter going.
Yeah, we have a starter. It's at full Kreuzen, so it should start pretty quick, I think.
So
yeah, they came by and got the yeast from me the other day, and it's really, really fresh. Luckily, we had just got a shipment in, and so it took off really fast for them. It looks beautiful in the starter. Nice thick layer of yeast in the bottom of it. This looks like it's going to be a really, really nice beer.
So what characteristics can we expect from that strain, do you think?
Well, those Edinburgh ale yeast give a kind of a smoky character. A lot of people talk about the Scottish ales as having that smoky character, and a lot of people think it comes from peated smoked malt that's been smoked with peat. And really, I think the style guideline says no, not necessarily. A lot of that smoky character comes from that unique yeast strain. So this should be really nice.
Yeah, so that should complement the maple flavors a lot.
Yeah, I think so.
Well, this has been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
This has been the brewing is good, the beer's good, the chili's good. The company is
awesome.
good, except for you, Andy. Of course, but I.
That happens. Yeah. I'm okay with that. As long as you give me beer, I'm okay. I'll stay.
Andy's thinking the same about me, but And we managed not to do a lick of work. I don't think, Andy. Did we do anything?
I think this was our plan.
You guys shared some beer. You shared some delicious beer and hung out and brainstormed recipes again. And
that's true. We did add beer and expertise.
Yes,
so
exactly.
Thanks again to y'all for. Well, I don't know if did you invite us over or did we invite ourselves over?
Well,
I'm not sure.
I sent a tweet out saying we were making maple sap beer, and James said that might be a good thing to record, and so.
And I think I tweeted, "Wow, that sounds yummy!" And look, we're both here.
Right, we're glad that you're here.
Come over anytime.
So thanks for allowing us to invite ourselves to your house for your maple sap brewing session. This has been wonderful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. We love to have friends over when we brew.
Yeah, thanks for coming. We've enjoyed brewing with you. Hope to do it again sometime.
Oh, this is what home brewing's all about, getting with friends and all these wonderful smells and getting to enjoy good beers and hang out together. This is what it's all about.
Woohoo!
Group hug.
Thanks again to Kasey and Jen for the hospitality. Can't wait to see how it turns out. By the way, after adding the maple syrup, the original gravity went up to the 1080s. I don't remember the exact number, but it's going to be a nice, good, big beer. And by the way, Andy and I did bring beers to the gathering, so it wasn't like we were total freeloaders. What a fun day. I enjoyed recording these brewing sessions. I hope you enjoy listening to them because it's, it just takes me back to that fun day, and I can kind of preserve it like a little photo album. And remember, there are photos of us brewing, or actually of the girls brewing. Andy and I were just, drinking, watching. You can see photos of us brewing on the Facebook page, the Basic Brewing Radio and Basic Brewing Video Facebook page. Remember, we've got the Brewer's Logbook and our new Basic Winemaking Introduction to Wine Kits DVD out there on our online store. If you have brewing questions, show suggestions, or just want to say hey, write to james@basicbrewing.com or just fill out the contact form on basicbrewing.com. And please don't forget to tell us where you're from. You can check out our other DVDs, Low-Tech Lagering and Decoction Mashing, Stepping into All Grain, and Introduction to Extract Home Brewing on our site as well. And we've got combo deals to save you a couple of bucks if you buy more than one DVD at a time. And you can see a listing of the fine folks across the country who sell our DVDs on basicbrewing.com, including Desiree and Dave at High Gravity, that I mentioned at the front of the show. And if there isn't a vendor in your area, you can order it from us online in our online shop at basicbrewingshop.com. We got shirts, our Go Forth and Flocculate shirt and Basic Brewing shirts in 6 colors on the site as well. And thanks to everybody who's continued to click on our Amazon.com link. We appreciate the support there. Our featured products this week that were purchased through the link are Say Cheese and Die Screaming. I hope that's not a recipe book. And the 5 love languages, how to express heartfelt commitment to your mate. Last week, Valentine's Day. Probably had something to do with that. Thanks again, everybody. And remember, I can't tell who bought what, so no worries there. Just click on the Amazon.com logo on our site the next time you feel like Amazon shopping. We appreciate your support. We also have an associate link to the Apple Store and to Audible.com on the site. That's all until next week. Until then, thanks for listening, everybody. I'm James Spencer. Production help for Basic Brewing Radio and our website is provided by Kelly Dodson down in Austin, Texas. Basic Brewing Radio is a production of Active Voicing. We'll talk to you next time, everybody. So long.